Greetings, Dave Dickinson here from AstroGuys.com. I'm going to go into this really quick because I'm kind of up against it here time-wise, but I'm going to do the Periscope pre-show for the weekly Space Hangout, which is about to go off. Matter of fact, the invite just came through. Hey, I got one viewer, cool. The invite just came. I don't know how this connection is going to go because I'm here at our Airbnb over here in Spain, in Andalusia, in Jimena de la Frontera, but I'm going to try to do this. Let me know. Hey, I got 3 viewers, cool. Let me know if this connection is coming through pretty decent, and I'm going to jump right over after this. This week, I'm going to be talking mostly about, there's a huge sunspot on the sun right now on the earthward-facing side of the sun that's just rotated around and starting to rotate away. This kind of goes against the grain of what we've been seeing for the cycle 24, which we're on the downside of cycle 24 right now. So it's kind of unusual that we're getting some activity in what really has been kind of a really of a low these last few months. I'm sure we're going to talk about SpaceX. I don't know if I'm going to be tasked to talk about it or not, because the first landing on a barge by SpaceX happened last Friday, right after the Space Hangout last week. As a matter of fact, I tuned in right after that and watched over to that. What I'm curious to see is when we're actually going to see SpaceX reuse one of those boosters, and I'm interested to see the cost breakdown of refurbishing and reusing those boosters for second launch, if it's just as easy as pumping in more fuel and getting them to mating up all the other stuff. I know the shuttle program had that problem with the SRBs, where they had to reuse the sardine cans, but they had to recover them from the ocean, they had to clean them up in the salt water and the corrosion, they had to refill the solid rocket motors. The cost analysis I saw breakdown before with the refurbishing the shuttle SRBs never really got to the point where it would have been just better to reuse the SRBs again, or like remake them from scratch again. It was more just kind of an exercise in showing they could reuse them. But I'll be interested to see how that goes. Oh, also, we're going to be talking about the transit of Mercury. Hey, we've had a few more people joining in, cool. Yeah, I'm going to have to slide over here to the weekly Space Hangout. Probably join in progress, but that's okay. I've done that before. The transit of Mercury on May 9th, Bob King just wrote a post about this. Me and Bob have been kind of discussing the next two big events coming up in May, one being the transit of Mercury and one being the opposition of Mars. 2 big events not to miss in astronomy coming up next month. Transit of Mercury is on May 9th. You can see Mercury right now. It's getting set up for that transit in the evening sky. The moon just passed by it. The moon is now waxing gibbous. It was crescent this past weekend. Mercury was very nearby. If you can locate the star Aldebaran and Capella, they kind of form a nice triangle down to Mercury, which is about the same brightness, and it's in the same direction in the sky looking west. If you've never seen Mercury, now's a pretty good time. One of the better times of the year in the northern hemisphere to try to see it. Transit's about 7 hours long. It's going to favor North America, Europe, the Atlantic region. I think only the Asian Far East is going to miss out on this transit of Mercury. Again, 7 hours long. We have another one in 2019. We had one before, and I saw the other transit of Mercury I've seen was in 2006. That was from the Flandre Observatory. I nearly passed out from heat stroke when I was recording that one back in the day. Actually, I was out there doing a public service. I wasn't recording it, but I was out with a homemade solar filter on a telescope, showing people the sun and taking breaks going into the museum and trying not to overheat standing out in the Arizona sun, because when you're when you're watching a transit for 7 hours, you're standing out in the sun by definition because you're aiming the scope at the sun. So it's hard to not, solar viewing can get pretty hot in Arizona. But that's what's going on for astronomy. We also have a few things coming up. The mini moon, smallest full moon of the year, most distant. The moon is very near apogee for this next full moon, so we'll be writing about that. That's our self-coined term. If the astrologers can have supermoon, we can have the mini moon. That's our own term out there. Hey, write a wiki on it. And also, there is going to be, talked about the transit, we talked about the moon. Oh, there's an interesting article that came around. I haven't done a real deep dive in researching this, but I may write it up for Universe Today. There's an exoplanet discovery around Kapteyn's star that was done a few years ago. Now at the Carnegie Institute, they looked at some glass plates and they found, there was the capability to make this discovery back there in 1916. Just nobody knew to look at the data they had sitting on the glass plates back then. But it would have been possible to actually have made this exoplanet discovery over a century ago, which is pretty wild when you think about it. I remember Barnard's star was a star back in the 20th century that was talked about as having an exoplanet around it. And you know what's odd now? Because they were seeing minor perturbations, they thought they were. It turned out to be spurious equipment anomalies. But in the proper motion of Barnard's star, which is a very close star, about, I believe, 6 light years distant, it's interesting that now we know of 2,107 exoplanets and counting. That Barnard's star doesn't yet have an exoplanet detection. I think that's weird because when I grew up as a kid, that was the one that had was most likely to have those detections out there. But no, that's probably about what we're going to talk about. It escapes me who the special guest is this week, but I know we have one out there. If anybody out there has any questions, space, astronomy, Airbnb, living in Spain, drinking vino. We're right here in a nice little town that's got a castle up on top of the mountain, a Moorish castle from the 9th century, and it's cheaper to live here, much cheaper than, we're seriously thinking about maybe long-term life over here. Wi-Fi seems to work okay, at least from what I see here. I don't know what people out there in Periscope land are seeing out there as far as the quality or anything on that, but yeah, I'll give it the 1 minute warning right now, unless anybody's got any questions, and I'm going to hop over to the weekly Space Hangout. I see the invite's gone out. It's probably already live, but I can shoot out there in a moment. Yeah, see, we still got a few viewers out there. I find it's hard to do periscopes out just on the street. The Wi-Fi, the T-Mobile works over here with our phone, but it throttles it down to 2G. And unless I'm on a Wi-Fi network, I don't tend to have enough bandwidth or oomph or juice or whatever it is, Wi-Fi-age out there that gets me through to Periscope. So it seems like when I'm here on our home Wi-Fi, which we share with the other apartments, it seems stable enough that I can do a Periscope. All right. Well, doesn't seem to be any questions, so we'll be archiving this up for YouTube posterity, and we are cutting off, and we'll be on the weekly Space Hangout.